So hey guys, welcome to another Warframe video, and today we're gonna take a quick look at yet another Kuva weapon, and this time around it is going to be the mighty Kuva Grattler. Now, just like any other Kuva weapon, the only way to get it is by defeating a lich that's wielding the Kuva Grattler. So you have to go through the whole shenanigans of spawning a lich from a larvling, which will also give you a bonus element on the Grattler in the end based on the progenitor Warframe, and then you slowly start hunting the lich down until eventually you get to the showdown in Railjack. The Kuva Grattler is a mastery rank 15 fully automatic arc gun that does 50 damage with its projectile, most of which is puncture with only a little bit of impact and slash, and then there is a big 9-meter explosion that does 155 blast damage with 70% fall off. It comes in with pretty solid 27% crit chance, a 2.1 times crit multiplier, a hilarious fall off of 1 to 2000 meters, and then a fire rate of 5.55, a 60 round magazine, a 1 second reload in Arcwing, and when you have it on a Necromech, otherwise it's 2.5 and 27% status. One thing to bear in mind with the Kuva Grattler is that it has infinite punch through in atmosphere, so either when you have it on a Necromech or when you're using it with your frame via a Gravimag. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because grenades don't explode when you punch through an enemy, so while you're in atmosphere you don't actually want to aim for enemies, you instead want to hit the terrain near them, so you actually get the damage from the explosion. Now, while the comparison screen here is a bit weird because it's not showing the higher crit multiplier on the Kuva Grattler, we can still see the comparison to the standard Grattler. So we have higher crit chance, a lower fire rate, though the Kuva Grattler does not have any spool up time like the standard Grattler. You start firing at maximum fire rate right away. We then have a bigger magazine, actually twice the magazine size, a little bit longer of a reload, slightly higher status, and we have less damage, but then again you do get bonus damage based on the progenitor Warframe. And finally, since this is a Kuva weapon, it does gain more mod capacity, and you also extract more mastery from it as you put on more and more Forma up to a maximum of 5. So if you want to squeeze the absolute maximum out of this thing in terms of mod capacity, extracted mastery, and also unlock the ability to install a lens, you're gonna have to put on 5 Forma. But that is very unnecessary in my opinion, seeing as the Kuva Grattler comes with 3 V polarities as standard, so you can do a full build with no Forma whatsoever. Now, since you don't have an awful lot of options when it comes to building arc guns, the setup is gonna be pretty standard. For standard Gravimag and Necromech usage, we're gonna go with a hybrid setup where we run charged bullets and contamination casing for corrosive and status. Then we're gonna slap on primed rubido lined barrel for damage, followed by magma chamber for heat and status, then critical focus for crit chance and damage when aiming down sights. Then we're gonna invest a little bit into crit with hollow bullets for crit damage and battle axe scope for crit chance, and finally we have dual rounds for multi-shot. Now, one thing you can do here, especially if you don't like aiming down sights, is actually take out critical focus and replace it with automatic trigger for a buttload of extra fire rate, though bear in mind this will consume your ammo much faster. And finally, if you want to do some big bosses with this, more specifically the Profit Taker in Orb Vallis, I would recommend a setup like this, where you instead run electrified barrel and combustion rounds for radiation, and then if you want to add even more elemental damage, I would recommend Cold, which in this case is going to be Hypothermic Shell. Though if you really want to max this out, you would go with Polar Magazine, I just don't have the capacity without any Forma. Now, the DPS in Atmosphere especially is really good if you don't try to hit the enemies directly, because if the grenade punches through them, you lose a significant amount of damage because you don't get the explosion. And the explosion is huge, both in terms of damage and the actual size of the explosion. It's pretty big. Now we move on to the Profit Taker, where the weapon actually performs surprisingly well. You luckily cannot punch through the Profit Taker's legs, so you are actually getting full damage on there, and the damage is solid. It is a little bit more difficult to hit the legs than with some other arc guns, like for example the Mausoleum, because here you do have projectile travel time on the grenades. So all in all, it's pretty solid. It feels good, the damage is solid, and it's not too much of a hassle, plus you have plenty of ammo to go through the entire phase, no problem. Next on the menu, we have Necromech usage, where once again the weapon feels pretty good and it actually looks pretty good as well. The only issue that I personally had with it is that the 60 round magazine wasn't recharging quite fast enough, so every now and then I would run out of ammo and would have to wait for it to recharge, but that's really not that big of a deal. Then we have Gravimag usage, where the weapon feels really good as well. I particularly like the size of the explosion. It is humongous, so you're gonna be clearing entire rooms with just a few grenades, so that feels pretty damn nice. And finally we have Arcwing, where I feel the weapon is actually at its best. What you're watching right now is a Steel Path Arcwing mission, and it was buttery smooth. The damage here was more than good enough even for Steel Path, and hitting enemies wasn't a problem at all, because if I didn't hit the enemies directly, which most of the time I was actually able to do, they would die from the explosion, which is just massive. So yeah, this is actually a very solid arc gun across the board. I like it, and I would highly recommend you give it a shot as well. And that's pretty much it for the video, so I thank you very much for watching as always, guys. I hope you have enjoyed it and found it helpful, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.